Okay, I hope I do justice to your effort. Let's see. Uh, when you're born, we have some inclination to accept or reject such teaching. So the idea that when you're born you're an atheist is actually not true, according to Scripture. I mean, if you wanted to derive an answer to that question, you could from Scripture. John the Baptist met Jesus before he was born, and he leaped for joy. So John the Baptist, even before he was born, was predisposed to the message that Jesus was going to give. He was recognizable even from within the womb as the Messiah, and neither John the Baptist nor Jesus were born at that time. So, I mean, it's a leap of logic to accept, but when a woman is pregnant, all kinds of joy is taking place. Now, you could say it's just the fact that there's a human being and it's your own child and it's about to be born, but maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe there's communication going on. Maybe you don't understand how much reasoning is taking place within that unborn child. Rudimentary reasoning, but pure nonetheless. And there is certainly, to follow that reasoning, there is an inclination to sin that we all have. But faced with the choice to leave that life of sin and accept that Jesus is Lord, can take place from a very young age, like it did with John the Baptist. So certainly, I've never heard a sermon on this, but it can be derived from Scripture. Now, what do I use? I use the NIV. I use, if I'm with a Jehovah's Witness, I'll use a Jehovah's Witness Bible. If I'm with someone that has a King James Bible, I'll use a King James Bible. What made things easy to understand for me was just to accept the fact that there is no limit to where Christianity, where the precepts of God could be applied. You want to become a politician? Absolutely. You want to use the precepts of God freely, openly, and do it right. Do you want to establish a constitution for the country? Look at what we've got, fix it, put the words Jesus is Lord in it. So there should be no separation of what you believe from what you're planning to do. And we have that in common. As an atheist, you apply your belief system to whatever you do. I have work to do because I've got to do some catching up. My side of this argument, the fellow Christians who have been lax, have allowed the Constitution to reflect atheism. Even though it says you're free to, you have free exercise, the Constitution itself does not accept that Jesus is Lord. So I've got to deal with the Constitution. In order to deal with the Constitution, I've got to find candidates who are God-fearing in this way. There are none. So that puts a burden on me to either let it lie or become one. And that's what I've done. So if you check out my website, jesusis.net or Christocracy.net, you'll see that I've been a candidate for the presidency since June 6th, 1994. So we're at opposite ends of an effort. Both of us want our belief system to be reflected or accepted by the Constitution, by our government. Your system is more than accepted. Your system has advantages right now. You would argue that Christianity has advantages. I would argue that right now atheism has advantages because the tide seems to be going in your direction. Let's see. The members of the churches agree with me. I can go into any number of churches and find members of a particular church, let's say Lutheran, Methodist, Catholic, Evangelical, and I can find members in that church that once I ask the question, would you like to see our Constitution say Jesus is Lord? Imagine the benefits. And they would say, oh yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. You see, they have no problem with it. But it's the leaders, the elders, the deacons, the overseers, the priests, the pastors, that they have this knee-jerk reaction, no. You see, somewhere along the line they've been sold on the idea that the separation of God from government is good. And they are, because of that, I consider them the front line of Satan, which is not something that I just say lightly. I mean, I say that in all sincerity because I've tested it. I've gone into and contacted thousands of churches altogether, either visited or written to 30,000 churches, and I couldn't find a one that would just accept the fact that, yes, the Constitution should say Jesus is Lord and we should work toward that end, whereas I could find members that would. Not leaders, but members. Now, why would the gospel be introduced in a small part of the world? Well, 2,000 years ago, or thousands of years ago, even before 2,000 years ago, for the first written rendition of creation, it was a low-tech world. So it was introduced by word of mouth, and but before that it was introduced by evidence, by the universe, just looking around, seeing life, understanding that there's life and there's death and there are unanswered questions. Those kinds of questions, questions about cosmology, even before someone knew what the word, even knew the word cosmology, those kinds of questions could be thought about thousands of years ago. And people were able to come up with the right answer, that there is a God of heaven, there must be a creator. Those people were already Christians, even before Jesus was born. So Christianity is the oldest religion. It's been around since the first men and women roamed the earth. The first Christian, according to Christianity, therefore would have been Abel. He was martyred by his brother. I'll stop at that point. Thanks for the recommendation on the wine.